Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I'm Bex Hayhoe, the Executive Director of United to End Homelessness with Orange County United Way, and delighted to welcome you to our community chat today. We host these community chats once a month, and they all live on our YouTube channel, and we have covered a really wide variety of topics. So if you're somebody who's interested in learning more about homelessness, would encourage you to check out our YouTube channel for a ton of these 30-minute resources on lots of different topics with incredible speakers. And for this month's chat, we have got two wonderful speakers, local leaders here in Orange County that I'm just thrilled to be able to dialogue with about such an important topic of conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about homelessness and how homelessness and housing insecurity affects students here in Orange County, California. Students right through the entire school system, including in college. And so we're going to have a deep dive into looking at these students, how homelessness impacts them, and some of the things that are being done to help come alongside these young adults. So today I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. JoAnna Schilling. She serves as the president of Cypress College. She's also a member of the United to End Homelessness Leadership Council. Always thrilled to have her wisdom on that front as well. Cypress College has been at the forefront of responding to the needs of their student body and ensuring a rewarding college experience for all. Today, we are also joined by Jennifer Friend, the founder and executive director of Project Hope Alliance, a local nonprofit here who focus on meeting the needs of students and having an impact on the wider community as well. Thank you so much to both of you. It's fantastic to be joined by two incredible powerhouses to talk about this pressing matter here in Orange County. So before we do a deep dive in, I would just love to take a moment for you to introduce yourselves and just share a little bit about how you got involved in addressing student homelessness. So Jennifer, I'll come to you first. Oh, Jennifer, we can't hear you. So sorry.
You'd think I would know to take the mute button off by now. Thank you so much for having me, Bex. I'm excited to be here and grateful for the opportunity to talk about the lifting of the invisibility of our students. Project Hope Alliance, as you mentioned, is an Orange County-based nonprofit. We place highly skilled, trauma-trained case managers and embed them directly into public school campuses, elementary, middle, and high school, serving and meeting the unique needs that students experiencing homelessness face in partnership with our school districts, principals, administrators, as well as our city and community leaders. So thank you again for the invitation.
JoAnna.
And I thank you, Jennifer, for taking the lead. I did take my mute button off. So thank you so much for inviting me to share this. And I'm really excited to be here with Jennifer as well. So I first became involved. I've been involved with community colleges for quite a few years. I'm the president at Cypress College. But in 2018, my awareness of how many of our students were really suffering from housing insecurity happened when we did a survey, and it was part of the national survey, but Cypress specific. So our students participated, and the numbers came back were just shocking. Over 55% of our students who responded said they had experienced housing insecurity, and 13% had experienced homelessness in the previous year. It was really a wake-up call for our entire community college community across the state. And I became involved with the Affordability Housing and Food Task Force at the state level, which focuses on the need for reducing the high cost of college, which of course is one of the largest barriers in college going for many of our students, and housing is a part of that. So since 2018, we have been applying for state and federal funding to build housing units on our campus, which would be the first community college in Orange County to offer affordable living for students. So it's a critical issue, and I'm glad to be able to talk about the complexities of it here today.
Thank you so much to both of you. So I'm sure all the participants are understanding why you are the people that we have in the room to have this dialogue in this conversation. Student homelessness, as we heard, impacts across a huge age range through K through 12 and college students. And I want to, before we sort of dive into other questions, let's set the framework here. How many students are we talking about to build off what JoAnna was sharing? Jennifer, I'll come to you first for just a bit of a deeper dive into the data.
Yeah, and the data is actually very staggering. What we know, just to kind of start at the highest point, is we know that our public school system in America has currently identified, by the latest numbers, 1.1 million kindergarten through 12th grade students experiencing homelessness. If we bring that down to the state of California, the California Department of Education's latest numbers have identified 244,626 students experiencing homelessness K through 12. You may recall the Los Angeles Times put out an article not that far distant that said that there are enough students in the state of California currently identified to fill Dodger Stadium 5 times over. So if we just kind of picture that, and again, those are the identified students. What we know from the data is that only 1 out of every 3 students attending a public school who is experiencing homelessness is actually identified. Then when we look in our own backyard here in Orange County, what the recent data is showing us is that we have identified 23,246 students experiencing homelessness. And again, that's just K through 12 identified. And the grand jury report that just came out in May actually honored the numbers that were being reported by the school districts, as well as the local nonprofits such as Project Hope Alliance, who are specifically focused on this population. We know that the number is much closer to probably 30 to 32,000, which are the pre-COVID pandemic numbers. The research has shown us that during school closures, we actually lost. And when I say lost, I mean, no one knows where these children are in our country. We lost over 100,000 children. And we don't know where they're residing. We don't know where they're connected to in the community. So those numbers are large, and they're staggering, and they're also critically important when we look at how we proactively and preventatively address homelessness today generationally, so that we're not trying to figure out how to address adult homelessness in another 10 to 15 years in the future.
Thanks, Jennifer. We've done previous chats looking at a point in time count. And so we might have some viewers here or who are just sort of wondering, I didn't hear 23,246 children when I learned about the point in time count. And so I know why these numbers are different, but would love for you to enlighten anybody who's joined us today.
Absolutely, and that's a good point of differentiation. America's public school system operates under the McKinney-Vento definition of homelessness, which we'll get to a little bit later. The point in time count identified 722 children under 18 and 389 families. And just to remember, the point in time count is a singular night on a singular day where people are going around trying to identify those who are sleeping unsheltered, whether they're in parks, doorways, vehicles, those types of things. So those are the different numbers that we're working with.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. The numbers are staggering. To hear that number of children experiencing homelessness in California is just heartbreaking. JoAnna, coming over to you to talk about the age range that you work with. What data do we have? What data is missing?
Well, it would take a long time to talk about what's missing. And the real truth is that we don't know exactly how many of these young people and working adults are affected. So community colleges, traditionally, we educate those who either can't afford the cost of going to a four-year institution or are looking to find more flexible ways to complete their college education. So we are truly serving some of the most vulnerable populations that we have. And so it's not surprising that the number of students experiencing housing insecurity, food insecurity, and homelessness is high at the community colleges, but we only know those who self-identify. So these surveys are imperfect because they're only those who actually participate. So you heard the numbers that I shared with you previously, about 55% of our students were identifying as housing insecure and 13% as homelessness. That was in 2018. And the four-year colleges are experiencing similar rates to that. Our affordability task force is about to release a new report from 2023 on food and housing insecurity. And those numbers are similar, but when you aggregate it, over 68% of those who responded are experiencing either housing or food insecurity, and 1 in 5 experience homelessness. So about 20%, which is higher than the 2018 count. So for many, it is the challenge of paying for an affordable place to live. And that's why I think sometimes in Orange County, we think, well, how could this be in Orange County? Well, the reality is we live in one of the most expensive places in the country. And a one-bedroom apartment is over $2,200. So when we're planning for affordable housing, students can't possibly pay that kind of rate, and can't even really pay $1,000, which would be what you would get for rapid rehousing. So it's really imperative for us to find ways to house our college students. It's no longer that the model that students are 18 to 22 years old and they live at home with their parents and they're going to college in their local area. That's not the student that we're educating anymore. We have students, it's from 18 to 25 is our average age. And then we have many older adults, even over age 40, and they have complicated lives with children to take care of. So the numbers are high. We have 15,000 students at Cypress College. We educate about 1.8 million students in the community college system in California. So when you aggregate those numbers and the percentages I just shared, it's a lot of students that are suffering.
It's a lot of students and the numbers are rising. So with that, I'd love, JoAnna, can you share a bit more with people who are watching today? What are the unique challenges that students are encountering when they have these either experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity? How does that impact them?
So I'm glad that Jennifer mentioned COVID-19, because we do know that we had many students who just disappeared, as you mentioned, with the younger students as well. And we don't know where they went. We did active campaigns to try to reach them and re-engage them. And many students, we had about 10% of all of just the mailers, and we were doing lots of social media reach out as well. They don't live at those addresses anymore. So we don't know where they went. Did they go out of state? Are they living with relatives? Where are they? So those are the lost students. And what Jennifer's talking about in K-12 is even more catastrophic. But the challenges are, again, affordability. And so when we talk about housing, it's really important that we're talking about what we've tried to do at Cypress College is to talk about the whole student. So how do you reach the whole student? So it's all about the dollars. So even though our tuition is very affordable, it's all of the other things, the transportation, the food, the housing, the books. All of those things are higher than the tuition ever will be at the community college level anyways. And students are not as eligible for funding and for loans. They do get loans, but we don't encourage them to take out loans to be at a community college, because they will probably have to take out loans at the four-year level. So it's identifying those students, it's removing the stigma from those students, making it part of our culture so that students feel free and able to reach out to us. And it's not an embarrassment for them to actually reach out for help. So for example, our food pantry is like a retail space. Our clothing closet is a retail space. They go in, they look at sizes, they can pick things out just as if they were shopping for something, instead of getting a handout. Because that we learned that was a real barrier to to our students to feel embarrassed to not have funding. And we're doing lots of things about textbooks. We partner with Pathways of Hope, which many of you know. It's a nonprofit in Fullerton who coordinate deliveries every week from Second Harvest, local food pantries. And then we're able to, our school has also been able to provide free hot lunches and breakfasts twice a day to every student. We don't ask questions. They don't have to sign up or, prove that they need it. We just serve it. That funding will be running out. We won't be able to do that for past this last year, but we've been saving our pennies so we can do that. And that also removes the stigma. And the idea is that later, when there might be a more selective way of providing support for students, they already know that they should not be embarrassed. This is part of our commitment to them to help them complete their education so they can pay for these things in the future.
JoAnna, it's wonderful to hear the ways that you've been able to provide students with dignity as you've been coming alongside to be able to help provide extra resources. So thank you. That really stuck out to me as you were talking. Jennifer, I'd love from your insight, from your case managers, from your team, what are the challenges that students are facing when they have homelessness and housing insecurity?
There are definitely a myriad of them. I just want to briefly kind of build on what JoAnna talked about from a dignity-based, child-centered, student-centered, family-centered, person-centered approach. One of the things when we're talking about we don't really know what the real number is. Part of that challenge is the stigma and the fear that comes from families identifying themselves as experiencing homelessness at the time of enrollment for their child's either elementary, middle, or high school years. I know personally, as my family experienced homelessness throughout my junior high and high school years, my family never identified the fact that we were living in a motel or sleeping on the floor of a friend's home. One of the great benefits and really privileges that we have in deeply embedding ourselves into public school campuses and working very strategically with our school administrators, assistant superintendents, principals, teachers, and counselors is that we are actually removing a lot of the stigma because it is all relationship based. And when we are able together to be on campus 5 days a week with our own office on a public school campus and have a teacher come to whether it's Lupita or Celso and say, hey, I think that, I think Bobby might be going through something hard. What does that look like? And we can talk to Bobby in Bobby's environment. We're able to identify what it is that's actually keeping that student from showing up and thriving in the classroom, because it is impossible for our public school system, nor should it be responsible for meeting all of the needs, the root causes that happen outside of the school day and outside of the school system that the students need in order to show up as a whole person, as a whole student, and really thrive in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Our case managers every day are eliminating barriers such as transportation. We know that a student is entitled to stay in their school of origin, even if maybe, like, for example, my family lived in a motel in Garden Grove, but my school of origin was in Huntington Beach. So if we had enough gas money for my parents to drive us to school, we went to school. If they didn't have enough gas money, we missed school that day. And that happened tragically frequently. So we're able to drive and pick them up. So transportation, also basic needs such as food, clothing, help navigating, trying to find actual housing. But I have to say, one of the most incredible privileges we have is unlocking a student's dream for themselves and for their own life in the future, and helping bring together all of the resources to make it possible. Whether it is the fact that, right now 70% of our students experiencing homelessness are unable to meet state standards. And that's within Orange County, one of the wealthiest counties in the nation. Less than 35% met or exceeded state standards in English. Less than 25% met or exceeded state standards in math. and we have a 30% chronic absenteeism rate among students experiencing homelessness. But that looks like a result of maybe a kid doesn't feel like they have the ability to try out for the football team or the marching band, or if they go out for Model United Nations and they make the ability to go compete, maybe at Harvard University, they're not going to have the money that they need to get there. But when we're able to come together, walk beside them, and make it possible for them to do those things, they flourish and they know that someone is there on their side. I mean, these are amazing kids. They choose to show up every day despite all of the obstacles and barriers in their way. And so really, whether it's high mobility, lack of transportation, sometimes health issues, whether you need glasses or maybe there's an underlying health condition, we're able to go to the doctors with our kids, and our 75% of our team is bilingual English, Spanish, and we can interpret for parents and doctors. So dentist appointments and mental health, especially coming out of COVID. Anxiety, as we know, has been listed by our Attorney General. We are in a state of crisis right now with our youth. And so being able to bring them to a therapy appointment, pay for the therapy appointment, all of those things, those are barriers that we're looking to eliminate.
Thank you so much. Such a rich conversation, and there's so much to dig into here. Earlier, we brought up the grand jury report that was released May 25th, I believe, so 2 months ago. The grand jury released their report looking at student homelessness, the ABCs of students experiencing homelessness in Orange County. And we'll drop a link into the chat box for anybody who's interested in that. But I would love to hear from each of you. Jennifer, I'll start with you on this one. What were your impressions of the report, and what are you hoping might come out of this?
So my first impression was hallelujah, to be quite candid with you. I had participated in the grand jury report since August, and this, quite candidly, has been a fight that Project Hope Alliance has been showing up for every day since I've been here at Project Hope in the last 10 years. And that is the lifting of the invisibility of our kids. So often when we talk about homelessness, we're talking about subpopulations that do not include a child or bring a child to the center. And we also have two different definitions right now within the United States. That one, the HUD definition of homelessness does not include people who are doubled or tripled up because of economic circumstances. And that is the largest population of students experiencing homelessness in America and in our county. Or couch surfing it instead, and understandably, this is a population that we must find solves for, whether it's our elderly population, our veteran population, our unhoused population, literally sleeping unhoused on the streets. But what we've been calling for is for America to see the kids who are legally defined as experiencing homelessness by the federal government and start operating under our public education system's definition of homelessness, so that we can bring together the resources that our kids need to be able to not only show up for school, but graduate from high school. It's 87% of students experiencing homelessness drop out of high school. We know that dropping out of high school is the single most significant factor in determining whether or not someone will experience homelessness as an adult. So showing up for our kids in real time is critical. So when we saw the grand jury report and we read that the grand jury found that the number of students experiencing homelessness should be defined by the McKinney-Vento Act, which is what the public education system operates under, and not the point in time count, so that we can aggregate together our community's resources to be able to serve these kids. It was profound, and our hope is that we're going to start doing this work now in unison, because we cannot afford to give up another generation of amazing kids who I believe will change the world. I mean, these kids can reverse engineer the heck out of anything. These are families that are working, most of them two full-time jobs. So we have the opportunity to show up for our kids, we know what works. We know that embedding resources right into the public school system, partnering with community-based organizations and the public education system and our cities and municipalities and our other nonprofit partners, that works. We know that this year, 93% of Project Hope Alliance's kids graduated high school, and that is versus the 70% graduation rate. So these things work when we show up for our kids. So now is the time for us to do it. And the invisibility is lifted. So let's just get to work.
Thank you, Jennifer. And JoAnna, earlier you had mentioned, 2018, there were these reports that came out. What was the impact of that? To sort of build off what Jennifer's talking about, right? This big report comes out, there's the possibility for forward momentum and movement. What have you seen that's happened as a result of that report?
Yeah, so I think there has been incredible momentum, and I want to follow up with what Jennifer said about the invisibility. It's really essential that these reports are shared and that we're talking about this just the way we are today, because you can treat homelessness as a reaction and treat it after somebody has become homeless. But the real power is treating all of these issues before the catastrophic result occurs. And so that's what we're all about, is to make sure that students can get their education, they can get a college degree, but they can't do that without a tremendous amount of support. So what has happened in the state of California since 2018 is now community colleges are talking about affordable housing. And I want to make a distinction between dorms and housing that are on college campuses traditionally and affordable student housing. They're very different, because these are not retail results in the sense that we're making money off of the housing. These are truly affordable units. And so the state had made a commitment in the last few years to fund community colleges and put money in the budget. This year, of course, we have a very severe problem in our state budgets. So Cypress, for example, we have been working on affordable student housing for several years, and many other colleges have as well. We applied for state funding to build a 300 unit on our campus, 300 bed unit. That would be no more than $500 a bed, which would be huge for our students. We had 72% of our students said if they could have a roof over their head and affordable housing, they would take classes full time, because most of our students take classes part time, for all of the reasons that Jennifer mentioned. So it's really critical that we are supportive of this kind of funding, which does come from taxpayer money. And people understand why we're trying to do this. Unfortunately, the state changed its model this year. So Cypress was ranked 8th out of 21 projects, and 7 were funded. However, those 7 colleges are now going to be funded on a bond and revenue-based model, which of course is impossible to do affordable housing on a revenue-based model. You can't do that. So some of the 7 colleges that were funded this year may not go forward with their projects because the model has changed, and that is not what we can do in order to keep the costs down. So these are all important things for our taxpayers, for our community to really understand. What we're trying to do here, again, as I said, on treating the whole student, is reduce the affordability or increase the affordability so students can get their college education, because that is the way out of the challenges that we're facing, and having too many young people living below the poverty level, which means their options are so limited, and the cycle of poverty keeps on being perpetuated, which often is that one paycheck away from being homeless. So our students can't be invisible. Our foster students, they have a model of free lunches when they're in K-12. When they come to college, they're emancipated, age 18. Suddenly, They now can afford their food. Guess what? They can't. So one thing that COVID did do for us is provide a lot of funding for us to treat students, their technology needs, their food needs, their housing voucher needs, their transportation. I'm glad you mentioned that, Jennifer. We have a relationship with OCTA, which provides free bus passes for our students. So all of these things are integrated. They're all essential, and they're part of the whole package that ends up in too many falling through the cracks and becoming homeless.
Thank you, JoAnna. You mentioned a couple of ways that people can get involved, and this is going to be our last question to both of you, as we have reached time. And so, JoAnna, is there anything else that you might briefly want to add about how the general public can help? And then Jennifer, I'll bring the same question to you.
I think it's certainly changing our attitudes about homelessness and who are our homelessness citizens. I think it's supporting our institutions that are trying to address this, and being involved and realizing we're all affected by this. And so and advocate. You know, we have some terrific legislators in our North Orange County area. Sharon Quirk Silva has been a incredible advocate for us, for both our veterans as well as for our affordability initiatives. Senator Josh Newman has also been a great support. And we really appreciate our legislators who get it and who understand it and advocate for us at the state and the federal level.
I would agree that advocacy is a huge piece. So what we have found, being embedded within 3 school districts and 1 charter school system, is that showing up for the kids has really become a grassroots community-based effort that has beautifully aligned and spilled into city efforts as well as district efforts. And so as a citizen, what you can do is you can ensure and encourage and support that alignment of resources for the kids. So when you are maybe going to a PTA meeting and there's a conversation about camp going on, or there's a conversation about an extracurricular activity, think, what would a barrier be for a student to know that they could try to participate in this? And let's all work together to build systems that will eliminate those barriers. So Project Hope Alliance has definitely grown from serving about 35 kids to serving just under 400 because of community advocacy and engagement and these beautiful partnerships that we're able to have with our principals, administrators, and city folks to show up for the kids. But we have to start talking about what homelessness really looks like for everyone in our community. And I do believe that if we take a child-centered approach to these conversations, we will end up meeting all of the folks at all of the edges. Obviously, we have to prioritize certain subpopulations because of the catastrophic events that can occur if you're sleeping unsheltered. But I do believe that the work is preventative, the work is upstream, so that we aren't constantly having to try to figure out how it is that we solve for these tidal waves of people experiencing homelessness that are now in their adult or their older age years that we're trying to build systems, housing around. Instead, let's show up for our kids. Let's ensure they have the ability to get an education, unlock their potential, and then they'll help us solve these problems in the future.
Thank you so much. Lots of great ways that anybody who is tuned in today can jump in and help be a part of the solution. If the term advocacy sounds a little scary or daunting to anybody who's watching, we offer an advocacy 101 class to sort of break down what advocacy looks like, what's helpful, what's effective. And so if you haven't taken that class with us, I know the link went into the chat box, so feel free to sign up for that if that's something you're interested in. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who tuned in today to the community chat. A pop-up poll is going to appear on the screen. So if you do have a moment to answer to those quick questions, we would greatly appreciate it. We take the feedback from our chats very seriously. A thank you to everybody who submitted questions in advance of the chat. That's what we use to help shape the agenda. A huge thank you to JoAnna and Jennifer for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your expertise, and your passion And thank you to both of you for the leadership that you have here in Orange County to make a difference for students here. So thank you, everybody. Feel free to come back, join us next month for our community chat. Have a wonderful rest of your day.